The night was unusually still over the mountains of Kai Province, as if the wind itself was holding its breath. A thin veil of mist drifted between the towering cedars, glowing faintly under the pale lanterns that lined the narrow path leading toward the old temple. Somewhere far in the distance, a temple bell echoed once, then again, its deep resonant hum rolling across the valley like a warning from the ancient world. And in that trembling quiet, a young apprentice named Hiroto knelt alone in the courtyard, his hands shaking despite his attempts to hide it in the sleeves of his worn training kimono. He could feel his heart pounding inside his ribcage, loud enough that he was certain his master would hear it. He had been summoned before dawn, without explanation, which in the world of the samurai was never a casual affair. The lantern next to him flickered, casting long shadows across the courtyard stones, making everything around him seem alive and watching. He swallowed hard. Then he heard the soft, steady crunch of footsteps approaching from behind. He didn't turn, he didn't dare, but he felt the presence move closer, a presence so centered, so utterly still, that the air around it seemed to settle. And then the footsteps stopped just behind his right shoulder. A calm, quiet voice spoke, not loud, not harsh, but sharp enough to slice through the trembling in Hiroto's chest. "You fear the morning," the voice said, "yet the morning fears nothing." Hiroto bowed deeply. "Forgive me, Master Shinjiro. I only was not prepared for." The Master Sip's voice interrupted gently. "There is no preparation for truth, only acceptance." Hiroto lowered his gaze to the cold stones. He could feel his shame burning. His master, Shinjiro Takeshita, was known across the province, not for his victories, though he had many, nor for his technique, though it was flawless, but for something far rarer. A mind like a still pond, unmoving, reflective, untouched by the storms that consumed other men. Shinjiro walked past him, his robe whispering softly against the ground. He stopped in front of Hiroto and looked out at the rising fog. For a long moment, he said nothing. Silence wrapped around them like a second mist. Finally, he spoke. "Hiroto, tonight you will learn the first truth of the warrior Sep's mind, and you will learn it through your own fear." The apprentice stiffened. He tried to hide it, but Shinjiro's eyes caught everything. "You cling to fear as if it were an enemy," the master continued. "But a samurai does not defeat fear. He does not push it away. He does not wrestle with it." Shinjiro raised a finger and tapped lightly on Hiroto Sep's chest. "He simply sees it, and in seeing, he controls it." Hiroto nodded, though he didn't fully understand. "Not yet." The master turned and began walking toward the inner temple, motioning for Hiroto to follow. The wooden walkway creaked beneath their feet as they entered the dim hall. Incense curled through the air, carrying the scent of sandalwood and old history. Candle flames wavered against the carved wooden statues of bodhisattva guardians that lined the walls, each one staring down with expressions of stern compassion. In the center of the hall, an elderly monk sat cross-legged before a large brass bowl. His eyes were closed, but his posture was straighter than the pillars around him. As the samurai and his apprentice entered, the monk struck the bowl once with a wooden mallet. The sound vibrated out through the hall in a slow, trembling hum that seemed to settle somewhere deep inside Hiroto's chest. "Listen," the monk said, opening his eyes at last. "Not with your ears, but with your breath." Hiroto inhaled, trying to steady himself, but the fear in him churned like a captured animal. The monk smiled knowingly. The mind of a warrior is not forged in battles. It is forged in the pause before the strike, in the breath before the decision, in the space where fear is noticed and allowed to pass. Master Shinjiro asked, "Hiroto, do you know of Musashi Sip's lesson from the cave at Reigando?" Hiroto hesitated. "I know. He meditated there before his final duel." Shinjiro shook his head slowly. "No, he dissolved there. He let the man he was quiet itself, so the warrior he must become could emerge." As they walked deeper into the temple, the torches dimmed, casting them into a long corridor lined with scrolls of ancient calligraphy. Shinjiro gestured to one of them, a single brushstroke circle. "Enso," he said, "the circle of emptiness." Hiroto studied the circle. It was imperfect, rough, open. "Why is it not closed?" Hiroto asked. "Because the mind is never finished," Shinjiro answered. "It is a river, not a stone, and every warrior who tries to freeze his thoughts, or fight them, or block them, becomes a prisoner of them." They stepped into a training hall where wooden swords rested in stands and tatami mats covered the floor. Outside, Dawnlight was beginning to bleed into the world, coloring the mist in shades of gold and ash. "Hiroto," Shinjiro said, "today you will train not your hands, but your attention." The young apprentice felt his throat tighten again. Training meant pressure. Pressure meant failure. Yet he bowed. Shinjiro placed a wooden bokken in his hand. "Hold it," he ordered. Hiroto obeyed. "Lift it." Hiroto raised it slowly. Shinjiro said nothing. He simply stared at Hiroto, an unblinking, piercing stare that seemed to strip him bare. Seconds passed, then minutes. Hiroto felt sweat forming on his neck. His arm began to tremble. His thoughts ran wild. "I'm going to fail. I'm not strong enough. Why is he watching me like this? What does he want me to do?" His muscles shook. His breath quickened. The sword wavered in his grip. "Master, I can stet." Shinjiro stepped closer and whispered, "You have already lost. And not to me, to your own mind." Hiroto's arm fell. The sword dropped to the floor with a dull thud. The master walked around him slowly. A samurai is defeated long before the blade touches him. His enemy is not the warrior in front of him, but the chaos within him. Hiroto stared at the ground, ashamed. Shinjiro knelt beside him and placed a hand on his shoulder. "But chaos is not your enemy, it is your teacher." Hiroto looked up. "When you trembled," Shinjiro continued, "you tried to resist it. You tried to force yourself to be still. That is the mistake. Stillness cannot be forced." "So what should I do?" Hiroto whispered. Shinjiro smiled faintly. "Feel everything, resist nothing, and control what remains." Outside, the wind finally returned, rustling the bamboo leaves with a soft whisper that sounded almost like an invitation. Shinjiro stood and looked toward the forest. "Come," he said. "Your next lesson awaits beneath the trees." And with that, they stepped into the golden morning mist, the master walking calmly, the apprentice following with uncertainty, but also, for the first time, with a spark of curiosity about the battlefield within his own mind. The bamboo forest welcomed them, with a sound like 1,000 quiet voices whispering secrets from centuries past. The tall stalks swayed gently, filtered sunlight dripping through the canopy in slanted beams that illuminated drifting flecks of pollen like floating traces of gold. Miyamoto followed close behind his master, his sandals brushing softly through fallen leaves, his breath deepening with every step as he tried to absorb the calm of the world around him. Yet his mind, still restless, storming, doubting. He wondered if Master Shinjiro could sense the turmoil in him as easily as one senses a ripple on a silent pond. Shinjiro finally stopped in a small clearing, where a single stone sat at the center, smooth and impossibly balanced on a narrow point. Hiroto had passed this stone before, always puzzled by how it remained upright through wind, rain, and the passing of seasons. Today Shinjiro approached it with reverence, as though it were an old friend. "This stone," he said quietly, "has stood here longer than I have lived. Samurai before me trained in this forest. They climbed these trees, practiced their cuts on bamboo stalks, meditated on river stones. But when asked what taught them the most, some answered, 'This.'" Hiroto stared at the stone, unsure how to respond. "A stone?" Shinjiro nodded. "Yes, because balance is not a skill, it is a state." He motioned Hiroto closer. "Sit." Hiroto settled onto the grass across from the stone. Shinjiro knelt behind him, speaking softly but clearly. "Look at it. Do not think about how it stands. Do not try to understand it. Simply watch." Hiroto tried, but his mind immediately filled with questions. How was the stone shaped? What kept it stable? Was there something beneath it? Why was this important? He sighed, frustrated. Shinjiro chuckled under his breath. "You are not watching the stone, you are watching your doubts." Hiroto blinked. "I don't understand." "No," Shinjiro said. "You are trying to understand, which is different." A small breeze passed through the clearing. The stone did not so much as tremble. Shinjiro continued. "Musashi wrote that the mind must remain calm in all situations, as though it were a perfectly still surface of water. If you throw even a single stone into a pond, its reflection shatters. Thoughts are stones, emotions are stones, expectations are stones." He tapped Hiroto lightly on the forehead. "And you are throwing them endlessly." Hiroto lowered his gaze. He wanted to be disciplined, strong, silent, but inside him stormed 1,000 unspoken doubts. "Master, how can I stop it?" Shinjiro stood, walking slowly around the clearing. "You stop nothing. You notice everything." He raised a hand. Look at the bamboo. Hiroto turned. The tall stalks swayed in a sudden stronger gust of wind, bending deeply without breaking. Why do they not snap? Shinjiro asked. Because they bend, Hiroto answered. Exactly. A rigid mind shatters. A flexible mind endures. Hiroto stared again at the bamboo. The wind pushed it hard, but it always returned to center. Shinjiro approached him and sat at his side. His voice softened, almost gentle. Do you know the story of Tsukahara Bokuden and the empty boat? Hiroto shook his head. Shinjiro looked out across the forest as though replaying a memory older than the clearing itself. Bokuden once traveled across a wide river. As he meditated in a small wooden boat, another boat drifted toward him. It struck his vessel lightly. Shinjiro paused. He felt no anger, no irritation, no reaction. He simply opened his eyes and saw that the boat was empty. Hiroto absorbed this silently. But, Shinjiro continued, had there been a man in the boat, his mind would have filled with judgment. Why was this man careless? Why did he not look where he was going? Why did he disturb my peace? Shinjiro looked directly at Hiroto. Anger arises not from impact, but from who we think caused it. Hiroto's breath caught. You treat your thoughts, Shinjiro said, tapping Hiroto's head gently, as if each one is a man in a boat. You argue with them, you push them away, you question them. He leaned closer. But when you realize your thoughts are simply empty boats, drifting across the river of your mind, you do not react, you do not fight, you simply watch. The apprentice felt something shift inside him, a small thing, but real, like the first crack of light before dawn. Shinjiro stood. Come. They walked deeper into the forest until they reached a narrow wooden bridge stretching over a low stream. Water rushed quietly beneath it, carrying fallen leaves downstream in slow spirals. Shinjiro stepped onto the bridge, and Hiroto followed, feeling the faint sway of the wooden planks beneath his feet. Tell me, the master said suddenly, what do you fear most? Hiroto froze. Of all the questions he expected, this was the one he had avoided the longest. He swallowed. I fear disappointing you. I fear failing. I fear being weak. Shinjiro turned to him, expression unreadable. Good. You fear what every samurai fears. Hiroto blinked in surprise. Fear is not your enemy, Shinjiro said. It is your compass. He pointed to the flowing water below. Fear shows you where your mind is not yet steady, where the current pulls you too strongly. Another gust of wind blew across the bridge, and Hiroto instinctively reached for the railing. Shinjiro did not. He stood like a stone rooted into the earth. Fear makes you cling, the master said softly. But a warrior must learn to stand even when the world sways beneath him. He turned back toward the path. There is one more place I must take you. They walked until the trees began to thin, revealing a long stretch of training grounds once used by generations of warriors. Old wooden dummies stood scarred by countless strikes. Faded footprints marked the dirt paths. At the far end stood a tall, weathered gate with ancient kanji carved into its arch. Hiroto read it aloud softly. Gate of no self. Shinjiro nodded. Beyond this gate lies the lesson most samurai never reach, because it demands the greatest sacrifice. Miyamoto felt his heart beat harder. What must be sacrificed? Shinjiro turned to him, eyes steady, voice low. Your identity, your story, the man you think you are. A hush fell over the world. Even the wind seemed to hesitate. Shinjiro rested a hand on Hiroto's shoulder. To control the mind, you must first let go of the one who suffers within it. He stepped toward the gate. Hiroto, walk with me. And together they crossed into the place where ego dissolves, and the true battle begins. They stepped through the gate, and immediately the air changed. The world grew quieter, not silent, but muted, as if the forest itself was holding back its breath. The clearing beyond was wide and circular, bordered by rocks worn smooth by generations of warriors who had sat, struggled, and unraveled themselves here. In the center lay a ring of white sand, perfectly raked, untouched by even a single footprint. Shinjiro motioned for Hiroto to follow him into the ring, their feet leaving soft impressions on the surface of the sand. Hiroto felt exposed, as if every movement he made carried a weight he didn't understand. He looked at his master with uneasy eyes. Master, what is this place? Shinjiro turned slowly, hands tucked behind his back. This, he said, is where samurai confronted the greatest enemy themselves. Hiroto swallowed. The air seemed heavier here, not threatening, but solemn. Shinjiro lifted his gaze to the treetops. Long ago, this ring was where warriors came before battle, not with other men, but with the illusions in their minds. The samurai who stood here before you learned to silence their inner voices, dissolve their self-importance, and see the world without distortion. He knelt in the sand, drawing a line with his fingertip. Most men spend their lives fighting shadows, fear, doubt, anger. But these shadows have no life of their own. They are made of the stories we attach to them. Hiroto lowered himself to his knees. Stories. Shinjiro nodded. Listen. He spoke softly, but each word carried a weight, like a falling stone. You believe you are weak. You believe you are unprepared. You believe your worth must be proven. He looked directly at Hiroto. But these are stories your mind created, not truths. Hiroto looked down at his hands. The trembling had returned, faint but present. Shinjiro noticed. You think your fear means you lack discipline, but fear is simply energy. The story you attach to it is what makes it suffering. Hiroto closed his eyes, breathing in the cool air. How do I change the story? Shinjiro stood, drawing 3 more lines in the sand, forming a small square around Hiroto. You do not change it, he said. You stop believing it. The words hit Hiroto like a gust of cold wind. His eyes opened. Shinjiro continued walking slowly around the square. Do you know how the legendary samurai Kami-Izumi Hidatsuna trained his mind? Hiroto shook his head. He would go into the mountains alone for weeks, with no sword, no armor, no food except what he found. Not to punish himself, as many assume, but to watch the stories in his mind unravel. Hunger would come, and his mind would say, you will die. But he did not believe it. Darkness would fall, and his mind would say, there are dangers hidden. He did not believe it. Storms would rage, and his mind would say, you will not survive the night. He still did not believe it. Shinjiro stopped in front of him. By the time he returned, he was untouched by fear, not because fear did not exist, but because he no longer mistook the mindtep's voice for truth. Hiroto absorbed the words. They felt distant but important, like something he would understand only when he needed it most. Shinjiro took a calm breath and then raised his hand. Stand. Hiroto rose slowly, sand falling from his kimono. Shinjiro gestured toward him. Draw your sword. Hiroto hesitated, confused. Training. Now? Master, I don't understand. Shinjiro Sepp's voice became firmer. Draw it. Hiroto did as instructed, gripping the wooden bokken and pulling it free. His stance was solid, but his thoughts were racing. Why now? What would his master ask him to do? Was he supposed to attack? Defend? Was this a test? Shinjiro stepped back and clasped his hands behind him. Good. Now. He took a slow breath. Fight me. Hiroto froze. What? Shinjiro remained unmoving. Fight me. Hiroto felt panic flood his chest. He had trained under Shinjiro for years and never once landed a strike. The idea of fighting him now was unthinkable. Master, I consent. Shinjiro Sepp's voice cut through the air like steel. That is the story, not the truth. Hiroto swallowed hard. But you stare stronger, faster. I will lose. Another story. Hiroto's heart pounded. His legs felt weak. His grip slipped. Shinjiro said quietly, everything in you right now is imagination. None of it exists. If I told you I was not real, only a shadow in your mind, would you still fear me? Hiroto looked up, confused. You stop are real. Shinjiro smiled faintly. And so is your fear. But the meaning you attach to both is not. He stepped forward, just one step, and Hiroto flinched. Shinjiro spoke gently. Even now you are not reacting to me. You are reacting to the story you created about me. The wind stirred the sand around their feet. A bird called in the distance. Shinjiro extended his hand. Strike. Hiroto hesitated. Strike. Shinjiro repeated quietly, and watch the story fall apart. Hiroto's breath trembled. His thoughts screamed. His chest tightened. But something inside him, something quiet, something beneath the noise moved. He stepped forward and swung. It was not a perfect strike. It was hesitant, slow, heavy with fear. But it was real. Shinjiro shifted lightly, almost lazily, and the bokken cut only air. But instead of correcting him, instead of criticizing him, instead of judging him, the master nodded. Again, Hiroto swung, missed. Again. He struck harder, missed again, again. His breath grew faster, his movements sharper, his mind louder. Again. Hiroto's muscles burned. He swung with everything inside him, fear, shame, frustration, all bursting into motion, and Shinjiro sidestepped, ending up behind him. "This," the master said calmly, "is your mind on the battlefield. Takeshive, Kalashive, 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 to understand." Shinjiro placed a hand between Hiroto's shoulder blades. "You were not fighting me," he said. "You were fighting your fear of missing, your fear of failing, your fear of judgment. You fought ghosts." Hiroto sank to his knees, panting. The sand beneath him was disturbed, scattered, a contrast to the perfect circle it had been moments before. Shinjiro crouched beside him. His voice grew soft again. "A samurai who fights his inner shadows exhausts himself before the battle even begins. But a samurai who sees those shadows for what they are becomes unstoppable." He gestured to the disturbed sand. "This is your mind," he said. Then he gestured to the untouched edge of the circle. "And this is what remains when the stories end." Hiroto looked at the sand. For once it wasn't a lesson that confused him. It simply spoke to him. Shinjiro stood, offering a hand. Hiroto hesitated, then took it, rising slowly. "We are not done," the master said. "There is someone you must meet, a samurai whose mastery of the mind surpassed all others." Hiroto wiped the sweat from his forehead. "Who?" Shinjiro looked toward the mountains. "The man who feared nothing, not because he was fearless, but because he understood fear more deeply than any other. Musashi himself." And with that, they walked toward the mountain path where Musashi's greatest lesson awaited like a storm at the edge of the sky. They followed the narrow mountain path, climbing higher and higher until the forest thinned and the wind grew colder, sharper, carrying with it the faint scent of stone and distant rain. Hiroto's legs ached from the hours of training, but something inside him felt awake now, raw, stripped and strangely still. Every step felt as though he were walking out of his old self and into something unknown. Shinjiro led him wordlessly, their sandals brushing through gravel and dry leaves. Above them, clouds drifted slowly across the sky like drifting fragments of thoughts that no longer clung to the mind. After a long silence, Hiroto finally asked, "Master, where are we going?" Shinjiro didn't look back, to the place where Musashi reshaped his mind, a place where warriors become mirrors. Hiroto felt a shiver run down his spine. Mirrors, the meaning hovered beyond reach. They continued until the trees finally gave way to a vast rocky plateau. The land flattened into a sweeping expanse of stone, wind-scarred and ancient, with nothing around them but open sky and the steady hum of the earth itself. Near the center stood a simple stone marker, weathered, cracked, almost forgotten. Hiroto approached it slowly. "What is this place?" he whispered. Shinjiro stopped beside him. "This is where Musashi meditated before writing the Book of Five Rings. It is said he spent hours, sometimes days, standing here without moving, watching the world, the wind and his own mind." Hiroto lowered his voice, almost reverent. "Why here?" Shinjiro pointed at the sky. "Because up here, there is no distraction." On the battlefield, Musashi faced dozens. Here, he faced only himself. The wind brushed past them like a whispering memory. Shinjiro walked forward and motioned for Hiroto to stand across from him. "Begin." Hiroto blinked. "Begin what?" Shinjiro straightened his posture and stood still. So still it seemed even the wind hesitated around him. "Stand as Musashi stood. Stand until the tremble in your leg becomes a roar. Stand until the wind becomes your teacher. Stand until your thoughts scream for attention, and then grow quiet." Musabi. Hiroto felt his heart sink. More stillness, more silence, more battles with himself. But he nodded. He planted his feet firmly on the stone and lifted his chin. The wind pressed against his clothes, tugging like invisible fingers. His knees began to feel the strain almost immediately. Shinjiro circled him calmly, speaking as he walked. Musashi fought 60 duels. He defeated swordsmen, spearmen, warriors of every style. Yet the greatest duel he ever fought was with the impatience inside him. With the story that said, "Move now," with that restless voice that urges you to break stillness, simply because being still feels uncomfortable. Hiroto's breathing grew shallow. His calves trembled. Shinjiro continued, "Do you know why Musashi often arrived late to duels?" Hiroto tried to speak, but his jaw clenched from effort. Shinjiro answered for him. Not arrogance, not disrespect. It was to test the mind of his opponent, Waiting makes the mind frantic. It forces a man to confront his own thoughts. He stepped in front of Hiroto. Most samurai lost the duel before it even began, because they lost to their anticipation. The wind strengthened. Hiroto Sepp's legs quivered. Shinjiro Sepp's voice hardened. Endure. Hiroto clenched his teeth. Do not fight the pain, Shinjiro said. Do not resist the discomfort. Do not label it as good or bad. Simply observe. Hiroto tried. He tried to watch the trembling instead of fearing it. He tried to witness the discomfort instead of escaping it. For a moment, just a moment, it worked. His mind softened around the struggle. The trembling did not stop, but it no longer felt like a threat. Shinjiro noticed the shift immediately. Good. Now hold it. Hold it like Musashi held the truth when it struck him. Hiroto's legs were now shaking violently, sweat trickling down his back. His vision blurred slightly, the wind stinging his eyes. The plateau felt endless, the sky impossibly wide. Shinjiro stepped close and whispered, "This is the moment he discovered the secret. The sword is meaningless if the mind is enslaved, but with a free mind, the sword moves on its own." Hiroto Sepp's breath hitched. Shinjiro raised his hand and gave a sudden sharp clap next to Hiroto's ear, startling him. Hiroto flinched, losing his balance slightly. Shinjiro nodded. That flinch, that reaction, that is your mind Sepp's chain. You do not control it, it controls you. Hiroto swallowed hard. He could barely finish the sentence. By seeing everything, Shinjiro said, by resisting nothing, by letting the world pass through you like wind through bamboo. He moved behind Hiroto and pressed 2 fingers into his lower back, steadying him. Drop your weight, relax the tension. Do not stand like stone, stand like earth, still but alive. Hiroto tried again, adjusting, breathing deeply through the strain. And something changed. The trembling became less violent, the mind less frantic. For a fleeting moment, Hiroto felt as if he were a mountain, unmoving, quiet, simply existing. Shinjiro exhaled softly, almost proud. Now you are beginning to understand. But the moment vanished as quickly as it came. Hiroto's legs buckled, and he collapsed to his knees, breathing wildly, palms pressed against the cold stone. I can sit, he gasped. Shinjiro knelt beside him, placing a firm hand on his shoulder. You can, but today you have reached your limit, not of the body, but of the story you tell yourself. Hiroto looked up, sweat dripping from his chin. It hurts. Shinjiro nodded. Pain is the doorway, discipline is walking through it. Mastery is what lies beyond. Hiroto closed his eyes. The stone beneath him felt warm from the sun. Shinjiro rose and offered his hand again. Come, there is more to learn. Hiroto took the hand and stood, shaky but present. As they walked toward the edge of the plateau, the view opened into a sweeping valley of forests and rivers far below. Clouds drifted lazily across the horizon. Shinjiro spoke quietly. You have learned the stillness of bamboo, the emptiness of the drifting boat, the awareness of Musashi. But there is another lesson, the one warriors fear most. Hiroto turned to him. What is it? Shinjiro Sepp's expression grew solemn. To face the part of yourself you have kept hidden, the part you pretend does not exist. He looked toward a narrow trail carved into the mountainside. We go to the cave. Hiroto felt a chill. The cave, he whispered. Shinjiro nodded. The place where warriors face the truth they fear to see. Musashi meditated in a cave. Warriors before him sought visions there. It is where the mind reveals what the world hides. He started walking. Hiroto, what waits in the cave is the lesson that will change you or break you. And with the wind carrying their shadows across the stones, they descended toward the darkness waiting inside the mountain's heart. The wind begins to shift as if the forest itself is listening, and the apprentice follows the master deeper into the night. The path narrows, lit only by scattered fragments of moonlight falling through trembling leaves. The silence feels heavier now, as though each step carries him further from the world he knows, and closer to something ancient, something waiting, something that has been calling him long before he ever chose the path of the warrior. The master walks ahead with a pace so steady, it seems he is gliding. His silhouette moves like a spirit carved out of shadow and certainty. The apprentice's thoughts, however, are restless. Questions swirl like smoke. What is this lesson? Why here? Why now? What does he want me to see? But the master senses the storm inside him without ever turning. Your mind is louder than your footsteps, he says quietly, as though speaking to the night itself. Every fear you have has already spoken 3 times. Every doubt has repeated itself 10 times. He finally stops near a clearing, where a single stone sits in the center, old and cracked, as if carved by centuries of rain and discipline. "Sit," the master instructs. The apprentice lowers himself onto the cold ground, but his mind refuses to settle. The forest feels alive, yet too still. The moon feels bright, yet not bright enough. His breathing is shallow, and his heart beats too fast, echoing through his chest like a drum on the eve of battle. The master kneels in front of him and places a small wooden cup between them. The cup is empty. Not even a drop left inside. "Tell me what you see," the master says. "Nothing," the apprentice replies. The master shakes his head gently. "Then you have seen only with your eyes, not with your mind." He picks up the cup. The apprentice watches, waiting for an explanation, but the master simply places the cup back down. "This is your mind," he says softly. "Empty, yet not at peace. Hollow, yet noisy. Capable of holding wisdom, yet filled with storms." The apprentice lowers his gaze in shame. "I do not know how to calm it. That is why we are here." The master rises to his feet and motions for him to follow. They walk further into the clearing until they reach the edge of a bamboo grove. The tall green stalks sway in the wind, moving with a quiet rhythm. The master gestures toward them. "Tell me what you see now." "They bend," the apprentice says. "And yet they do not break," the master replies. "This is the mind of a warrior, flexible but never weak, moved by forces but not destroyed by them. When wind comes, bamboo bows. When the storm ends, it stands again, untouched at its roots." The apprentice absorbs the words, but something in him still trembles. "Master, how do I become like that? How do I bend without breaking?" The master steps into the grove and places his palm on one tall stalk of bamboo. "By understanding the nature of your emotions. Fear comes like wind, sudden, cold and unpredictable. Anger comes like fire, carried by spark and fuel. Doubt comes like fog, slowly, silently, dimming your sight." He looks at the apprentice with eyes that reflect both compassion and years of unrelenting discipline. "But you try to resist them. You fight the wind, you punch at fog, you throw oil at fire, and so your mind burns, freezes, and blinds itself." A distant memory flickers in the master's eyes, a battlefield long past, a night soaked in rain and blood, a younger version of himself kneeling beside fallen comrades. His voice lowers. "When I was young, I too believed strength meant resisting everything, but resistance is not mastery. Stillness is not suppression. Calm is not the absence of fear. The samurai do not kill their emotions. They understand them, channel them, shape them." He moves deeper into the grove, each step careful, deliberate. The apprentice follows. They stop at a place where several bamboo stalks have grown close together, forming a natural circle like a quiet sanctuary hidden from the world. "This is the place," the master says. "For what?" the apprentice asks. "For you to meet the enemy you fear most." The apprentice stiffens, hand instinctively reaching for his sword, but the master shakes his head. "You cannot draw steel tonight. The enemy is not outside of you." The forest grows silent, even the wind seems to pause. "The enemy is the part of you that screams," the master continues. "The part of you that trembles, the part of you that wants to run, the part of you that lives only in fear of itself." He steps back, leaving the apprentice alone in the center of the circle of bamboo. "You will sit here until the storm inside you settles," the master says. "You will confront the voices that have ruled your heart, and you will not rise until you have learned the first truth of controlling your mind." The apprentice swallows hard, which is that the mind obeys only those who stop trying to control it. The apprentice frowns, confused. How can you control something by not controlling it? The master sits, eyes soften. Because control is not force. Control is understanding. It is awareness. It is presence. A sword does not cut because you struggle with it. It cuts because your hand knows it, your body knows it, and your mind flows with it. He turns, the sound of his steps fading into the darkness. "Now sit." The apprentice sits. At first, the night feels calm, too calm. The stillness presses against him. He closes his eyes, and immediately, the storm awakens. Fear arrives first, the memory of the battlefield where he hesitated, where a friend nearly died because he froze for a heartbeat too long. Then comes anger, the anger at himself, burning hot, accusing him of weakness. Then doubt, whispering that he is unworthy, that he will never become the warrior he hopes to be. The apprentice sits as breath quickens. He clenches his fists. He feels the urge to stand, to walk away, to escape, but he remains seated. Minutes stretch, then longer. His thoughts collide like waves crashing against a cliff, until something begins to shift. Not outside him, inside, a small realization, subtle but sharp. He is not the storm, he is the one watching the storm. The wind stirs the bamboo overhead, and suddenly its rhythm feels different. It feels like guidance. The apprentice breathes slowly, deeply. The fear does not vanish, but it loosens. The anger does not explode, but it warms into energy. The doubt does not choke him. It softens into humility. He sits with the storm until the storm no longer feels like an enemy. Time passes, though neither the knight nor the apprentice keeps count. Eventually, footsteps return. The master approaches, watching him closely. "What have you learned?" he asks. The apprentice opens his eyes. "That the storm is not me," he says quietly. A faint smile touches the master-sip's lips. "Good. Then you have taken the first step." But the lesson is far from over, and what comes next will push him deeper into the samurai's most guarded secrets. The master studies the apprentice's face for a long moment, as if searching for the subtle shifts in spirit that words alone cannot measure. The night air is cool now, colder than before, but the apprentice feels strangely warm, as if a quiet flame has been lit somewhere deep inside him. The master turns away and gestures for him to follow again, and together they walk through the bamboo grove until the trees open into a long empty stretch of field illuminated faintly by the moon. Here, the world feels vast. Here, the sky seems to hang lower, closer, as though ready to listen. The master stops at the center of the field. "You have learned to sit with the storm," he says, "but you have not yet learned to move through it." The apprentice looks up, puzzled. "Move through it?" The master nods. A samurai sep's mind must remain steady not only in stillness, but in motion. Anyone can find calm in solitude. The true test is carrying that stillness into chaos. He steps back, drawing a line in the dirt with the tip of his toe. "Cross it." The apprentice takes a step. Immediately, the master moves. Without drawing his sword, without even lifting a hand, he simply shifts his stance, and the apprentice feels pressure, a tension, an invisible force pushing him back. It isn't physical, it's something deeper. A presence, a mental strike. The apprentice stumbles, shocked. "Master, what was that?" "The mind," the master says. "Yours collapsed the moment mine pressed against it." He draws another line. Again. The apprentice breathes, steps forward, and again the master moves subtly, a small tilt of his head, a narrowing of his gaze, a shift in posture, and once again the apprentice freezes, paralyzed by invisible weight. "You felt it," the master says. "The hesitation, the doubt, the fear. It is the same enemy as before, only now it moves with your body." The apprentice feels frustration rising. "How do I defeat something I can see?" "You do not defeat it," the master says. "You walk through it." The apprentice closes his eyes and breathes slowly, remembering the bamboo, remembering the storm. He steps across the line a third time. The master moves, the same subtle pressure, but this time the apprentice doesn't stop. His mind trembles, yes, but he continues forward, letting the fear flow through him like wind. He feels like he's stepping into a wave instead of trying to stand against it. The master scepter's brows lift ever so slightly. "Better," they continue. Again and again and again. Each time the master's presence intensifies. A shift in breath, a tightening of the shoulders, a flicker of intent so sharp it slices through the night, like the whisper of a blade. And each time, the apprentice learns not to harden against the pressure, but to dissolve into it, to let it pass through him. Minutes become hours, the moon drifts across the sky. And finally, on one attempt, the master unleashes a burst of killing intent so fierce it could make a seasoned warrior drop to his knees. But the apprentice walks through it. His mind quivers but does not collapse. His gaze stays steady. His heart beats strong, and the master steps aside, letting him pass. The apprentice exhales a long, trembling breath. The master nods slowly. "Now you understand the second truth. The mind is not controlled by force, it is guided by flow." They walk again deeper into the fields, until a faint mist begins to rise. Somewhere far away a temple bell rings, slow, deep, ancient, as though marking the next chapter of the night's teachings. The master speaks as they walk. There was once a samurai named Tsukahara Bokuden, he says. A man so disciplined that his calm was stronger than any blade. One day, a young warrior challenged him to a duel on a ferry boat. Bokuden agreed, but said the shore was the proper place. When they reached land, the young warrior jumped out first, readying for battle. Bokuden simply pushed the boat away and left him stranded. The apprentice blinks. He didn't fight. He understood something the young warrior did not. The master says that victory is not the ability to strike, it is the ability to choose. A mind that cannot be provoked is a weapon greater than any sword. The apprentice lets the words sink in. Remember, the master continues. Most battles are lost before steel is drawn. The enemy is not the opponent. The enemy is your reaction. The mist thickens around their feet, curling like pale serpents. The forest ahead grows darker, but the master leads them straight into it. Tonight you will learn the third truth, he says. The apprentice tenses. What truth is that? That emotion is energy, and energy, when controlled, becomes power. They climb a small path until they reach an old torii gate. Its wood is cracked, moss creeping around its edges. Beyond it lies a set of stairs carved into stone, leading to a forgotten temple hidden deep in the mountain. The master begins to ascend. The apprentice follows, each step echoing with the weight of centuries. Old lanterns flicker on the sides of the path as though awakened by their presence. The air grows colder, the silence heavier, the night darker. At the top, they reach a temple courtyard, empty, except for a single stone lantern, glowing faintly, and a row of wooden statues worn by time. Here, the wind does not move. Here, everything feels suspended, a place untouched by the rush of the world. The master walks to the center. Emotion is not your enemy, he says. Emotion is the fire of the mind, but fire must have a master, or it destroys. He looks at the apprentice with deep, unwavering eyes. Sit. The apprentice sits. What emotion rules you? The master asks. The apprentice hesitates. Fear. Good, the master says. Fear is honest. Fear is a teacher. Fear shows you where your edges are. He circles the apprentice slowly. There was once a young samurai terrified before his first battle. He confessed his fear to an elder. The elder told him, "Thiek, you are not afraid of death. You are afraid of seeing yourself unmasked. Serve." The apprentice lowers his gaze. "I feel that." The master nods, "Then face it." The apprentice closes his eyes. Fear rises quickly. Memories, failures, imagined futures. His breath trembles, but he does not run from it. He explores it, examines it, embraces it. Something about the temple's silence helps. It feels like the walls themselves absorb his trembling. The master speaks softly, "Now shift it." The apprentice opens his eyes. Shift. The master kneels behind him, placing a hand lightly on his back. Fear is energy. Transform it. Turn it to alertness. Turn it to readiness. Turn it to focus. The apprentice breathes in. He feels the fear, but instead of letting it choke him, he follows it, tracing its sensation. The tightening in the chest, the quickened pulse, and slowly he repurposes it. The fear becomes clarity, awareness, a sharpened edge instead of a frayed nerve. The master feels the shift immediately. "Yes," he says, "this is the samurai way. Control is not suppression, control is transformation." The apprentice exhales, and the temple seems to exhale with him. The master rises. "Come. There is one final truth we must reach before dawn." They walk toward the inner hall of the temple, where a single candle burns, its flame steady, despite the cold drafts. The master stops before the door. "Beyond this point," he says, "you will learn the most dangerous truth of the samurai mind." The apprentice feels a chill. What truth is that? That the greatest enemy of the warrior is the ego. He pushes the door open, and the darkness inside feels deeper than any they have faced so far. And the apprentice knows, whatever waits inside will change him forever. The moment the apprentice steps inside the inner hall, the air thickens like old incense. The wooden floor beneath him creaks softly, as though the temple itself is whispering warnings from centuries long gone. The candle's flame at the far end glows faintly, barely illuminating the space, yet its small light feels deliberate, as though it exists only to reveal what must be seen and hide what is not yet ready to be known. The master enters after him, sliding the door shut, with a gentle thud that echoes through the darkness, like a drum signaling the beginning of something sacred or something dangerous. The apprentice waits, unsure if he should speak. The Master Sep's voice emerges from the shadows. You have faced the storm of your mind. You have walked through hesitation. You have transformed fear, but none of these matter if you remain a prisoner of yourself. The apprentice frowns. Myself. The Master moves closer, the candlelight catching only the edge of his face. Your ego, he says quietly. The voice that demands recognition, praise, validation. The voice that fears humiliation more than death. The voice that whispers, I must win, I must be admired, I must be better. He steps fully into the light now, and the apprentice sees something in his eyes he has never seen before. Not sternness but sorrow. It has destroyed more samurai, the Master continues, than war ever has. The apprentice Sep's breath catches, but is instinct ego necessary? To push oneself? To become strong? No, the Master says firmly but gently. Strength born from ego collapses the moment it is questioned. Strength born from discipline cannot be shaken. He walks toward a large wooden panel on the wall. With one swift motion, he slides it open, revealing a mirror behind it, old, circular, polished to a muted shine. It reflects the apprentice faintly, as though the image is not his body but his spirit. This mirror, the Master says, belonged to a warrior who lost everything because of his ego. A warrior once undefeated. The apprentice steps closer. Who was he? He asks. Miyamoto Musashi, the Master replies. The apprentice freezes. Even the name feels heavy. Musashi. But he was the greatest swordsman in history. Yes, the Master says. But his greatest battles were not fought with opponents. They were fought with himself. The Master walks behind the apprentice. Musashi once wrote, You must understand that the way of the warrior is to master your mind, not your enemies. He's disappeared into caves, forests, temples, not to escape the world, but to escape the illusion of himself. The apprentice stares at his faint reflection in the mirror. Master, what am I supposed to see? A mirror shows only the surface, the Master says, but the ego hides beneath it. The apprentice waits. The Master speaks softly. Look at yourself. Look past the face. Look past the body. Look past the warrior you think you still becoming. What remains? The apprentice stares harder. At first he sees only the faint outline of his features. Then he sees the exhaustion in his eyes. Then he sees the fear behind that exhaustion. Then he sees the insecurity beneath the fear. Then he sees the hope buried beneath the insecurity. And then he sees something deeper than all of that. The quiet truth that has always been there. A self not built on wanting to be admired or feared or respected, but a self that simply is. A presence, a clarity, a center. The apprentice inhales sharply. The Master places a hand on his shoulder. That is the warrior, he whispers. Not the mask you show the world. Not the pride you cling to. Not the doubt you try to hide. The warrior is the one who remains when every illusion of yourself has been burned away. The apprentice feels warmth spreading through his chest. Not pride, not excitement, but a still, profound understanding. The Master steps back. Now, he says, we begin the final part. He walks toward the sliding doors at the far end of the hall and pushes them open. Cold wind rushes in. Beyond the temple lies a cliff overlooking a vast valley. The first faint glow of dawn begins to spread across the horizon, painting the sky with slow strokes of pale gold and deep purple. Come, the Master says. The apprentice follows him onto the wooden platform at the cliff's edge. The world below is quiet, painted in mist and morning's breath. This, the Master says, is where every samurai faces the truth. The apprentice Sep's pulse quickens. What truth? That the mind is not conquered through force, nor calm, nor fearlessness, but through purpose. The Master sits at the edge of the platform, legs folded, eyes fixed on the awakening sky. When a warrior has no purpose, the mind becomes a battlefield. But when a warrior has purpose, the mind becomes a blade. The apprentice kneels beside him. Your purpose, the Master continues, is the anchor that holds you steady in chaos, the flame that lights your path, the compass that points you forward. Without it, you will drift. With it, you will become unshakable. The apprentice swallows. But how do I find my purpose? The Master closes his eyes. You do not find it, you reveal it. The valley breathes below them. The Master speaks softly. Think of everything you fear, everything you desire, everything you regret, everything you hope for. Behind all of it, there is something you are meant to protect, something you are meant to pursue, something you are meant to give to the world. He turns to look at the apprentice. Name it. The apprentice's mouth goes dry. He looks out at the valley, at the rising sun, at the mist curling below like the breath of sleeping dragons. He searches himself, not his ambitions, not his pride, not his fears, but the quiet truth deep within, and suddenly, the answer appears, something simple, something undeniable, something that has lived in him since he first picked up a wooden sword as a child. The apprentice whispers it. The master nods slowly, approvingly. Then your mind, he says, will bow to that purpose for the rest of your life. The sun rises, spreading gold across the world. The master stands. Now you are ready for the final lesson. The apprentice rises as well. What is it? The master looks at him with eyes that carry centuries of discipline, pain, victory, and peace. That the mind, he says, is mastered through one path only, the path of daily death. The apprentice freezes. Daily death. The master nods. To die each day to your ego, to your anger, to your distractions, to your excuses, to everything that keeps you small. When you die to these things each morning, you are reborn with clarity, purpose, strength, and silence. The apprentice feels the truth pierce him like a blade. This, the master whispers, is how a samurai walks the world unshaken. The sun rises fully now, flooding the valley with light. The apprentice breathes in slowly. He feels different. Not stronger, clearer, not braver, quieter, not fearless, purposeful. The master steps back, studying him, seeing the transformation not in posture or expression, but in presence. The shift in the apprentice's aura, the steadiness in his breath, the silence in his eyes. Now, the master says, walk. The apprentice takes a step. And for the first time, his mind does not resist. It follows. He walks to the edge of the platform, and the world expands beneath him, vast, endless, and waiting. The master step's voice rises behind him like a blessing, like a command, like an awakening. Go into the world with the mind of a warrior. See the storm, walk through the fear, transform the emotion. Abandon the ego, hold your purpose like a blade in the dark. And wherever life places you, stand like bamboo in the wind. The apprentice closes his eyes, and the path appears before him, not drawn in dirt or stone, but inside his own spirit. When he opens his eyes again, he is no longer an apprentice. He is a warrior of the mind. The master watches him go, the morning light catching the edges of his robe. The valley breathes. The wind rises. The world awakens. And somewhere deep within the mountains, the ancient teaching echoes like a temple bell. Master your mind, and you master your life.